Hey, what's up, YouTube? It's Bobby, aka Paginator, and I'm here today with the mid-year book freakout tag. Did I say that right? Hey, this is Editing Bobby. I stupidly forgot to give you an exciting announcement, or at least it's exciting to me. If you know the website Swoon Reads, it is through Macmillan Publishers, and they allow people to post their manuscripts for YA books on the site and get reviews and content feedback from readers. And some people are even chose to be published. So if you would like to read something that I wrote, you can go to Swoon Reads and look for the book The Magnanimous. It's about a biracial girl who's half English, half Native American, and she's 17, living in the time of the American Revolutionary War, and just been left in charge of the moving hospital that her father invented, and that George Washington is counting greatly on to get his soldiers through the harsh winter at Valley Forge. Anyway, if you're interested, go check it out. If not, ignore this bit. Bye! Anyway, I'm going to be talking about books, answering questions about my reading thus far this year, and what I'm going to be planning on reading for the rest of the year. Thus far, other than the amazing books I've read, 2020 has kind of sucked. So let's talk about the good things, right? The books. So question 1 asks for the best book you've read thus far in 2020. This has been a hard one to pick. I looked through my records, and this is the book that I chose as the best one, which is The Black Flamingo by Dean Atta. In a weird time warpy, wibbly wobbly, timey wimey kind of thing, you're gonna see me actually haul this book in next week's video, because reasons, I guess. But I've actually already read it, and I adored it. This is the story of a biracial gay young man who lives in London, and he feels like, due to his ethnicity, he's never quite Greek enough on his mother's side, and never quite black enough on his father's side, in addition to the fact that his father's a dirtbag. He's kind of, I don't know, he's just not a nice dad. Like, he'll call up his dad's family, and they'll call to the dad and say, "Come here, your son's on the phone," and he'll go, "Eh. Seriously?" Anyway, this book is told in verse, and it's through Mike, our main character, discovering the world of drag and how that makes him finally feel like he belongs somewhere and is a part of a group. So the writing was just wonderful, and I found myself wanting more from this author, so I'm going to have to look up some of his other books. This is his first YA book, but I know he's written other things. Question 2 is, what is the best sequel that you've read thus far in 2020? And for this one, I chose The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. I know it's technically a prequel, but I'm using it. This book was really, really well written, even though it's about President Snow and his backstory and why he is such a colossal jerk face. I want to say things that are going to be spoiling, so I won't, but holy cow, is the writing good. It made me understand why he grew up to be the way that he did, and there were also some little, like, Easter eggy kind of things in there, like details that become important in his future that we already know, like the hanging tree and from the song that Katniss sings, and there's just other things that we learn about here that become important in the regular main Hunger Games series. Does that make sense? Number 3 is a new release that you haven't read yet but you want to, and that is The Boundless by Anna Bright. This is the sequel to The Beholder, which was one of my very favorite top reads of last year, and you'll also see me haul this book in my video that's premiering next week. I am so sorry, things are backwards in order, but still, I haven't read this one yet, but it's very high on my list of books to get to. I have to do some reading for grad school before I can get to this one, though. Yuck. Number 4 is your most anticipated release for the second half of this year, and mine is Instant Karma by Marissa Meyer. It's coming out in November, I believe. It is one called Instant Karma, which is a Beatles song. So I'm going to be singing that song in my head and going, but we all shine on. I told myself not to sing in these videos anymore. I'm sorry. Anyway, and it's by Marissa Meyer, who is one of my favorite authors. Have you guys been listening to her new podcast? It's fabulous. It's called The Happy Writer, I think, or The Happy Author. Anyway, sidetrack. I'm very much looking forward to that book. It's apparently about a young girl who suddenly discovers she has the power to inflict instant karma on whomever she wishes. And by doing so, perhaps she's going to create some karma for herself as well. I guess we'll find out when the book comes out. Number 5 is your biggest disappointment, and I have to say it is The Betrothed by Kira Cass. I was super excited when I heard the concept for this book as a prequel duology, the first in a prequel duology to the Selection series, and I was just disappointed that... I don't know if I can pinpoint exactly what disappointed me so much. I don't know if it was the characters. I don't know if it was the plot. I don't know. I found myself just wishing there was more there. And it just kind of let me down in a general disappointing way. Number 6 is your biggest surprise. And for me, that is The Remarkable Journey of Coyote Sunrise. I had heard this book being talked about as a fantastic read, and a coworker of mine who our book opinions usually agree had said that she loved it, but I still wasn't expecting to love it as much as I did. This is a story about a girl named Coyote and her father named Rodeo. Those aren't their real names. Their dad reinvented their family after the mom and the 2 sisters were killed in a tragic car accident. And so Coyote and her dad are now traveling on this remade school bus around the country, just wherever the wind takes them. If they get a craving for a pork chop sandwich in Montana, they pack up and drive to Montana, or, you know, wherever they go. And during this book, Coyote speaks to her grandmother on the phone, and she says, you know that park that you guys used to go play at, you and your sisters? They're going to tear it down. And Coyote immediately decides that she needs to go back home because she and her sisters buried a time capsule at that park before they were killed. I don't know if it was the day before or the week before, but very soon before they were killed. And she knows that her father will never go back home. So she's got to find a way to get him there. And they end up picking up a very differentiated cast of characters that go on the bus with them along the way. And it's very much about community, that they form this little family together, but also healing, and you can't run away from your ghosts forever. Number 7 is your favorite new author, and this could be a debut author or an author that's new to you, and in my case it's both. Kate Stayman London, the author of One to Watch. I cannot tell you how many times I have recommended this book since I've read it. It is absolutely fantastic. This is about a plus-size fashion blogger who is picked to be the main character of a Bachelor-like show called Main Squeeze. And she dates an interesting variety of men during the progress of the show. And an additional guy from her past comes back to haunt her. And it was absolutely fantastic. It sometimes was emotionally difficult to read as a plus-size person, but it was so wonderfully done. I posted a couple different pictures and a review of this on Instagram, and the author was so sweet. She's like, oh, thank you so much for posting this, and it made my day that I made her happy with posting a positive review. But I have been recommending the heck out of this to anyone who will listen, and I cannot say enough about this book. It is fantastic. Number 8 is your newest fictional crush, and mine is Dara from City of Brass. I recently read this and just totally fell for him. Like, nah. If you don't know this series, Dara is, he's a genie, but that's not the word he uses. I gotta remind myself, because he would yell at me if I called him that. The people of his, I don't want to say race, but his clan or whatever are called Jinn, but there's another category called Deva, and he's a Deva, and they are beings of fire, and they are the name that his group has taken on, are the Deva. And so our 2 main characters are part of that clan or family or whatever you want to call them. So he is that, and he's also kind of dead but kind of not dead, because we find out that he was drowned at one point, but he's here with our main character, helping her. And anyway, I love how he is so fiercely protective of Nari. That's how I always said her name in my head. I don't know if that's wrong or not. And how he's not afraid to admit that he's attracted to her. You know, some guys are like, oh, I don't like you, get away from me. I also like how he's not afraid to tell her when she's done something wrong, and I just love the relationship that those two have. And I found myself like picturing myself as her, like looking at him and going, da-da, 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 you're pretty. I know, dumb. Number 9 is your newest favorite fictional character, and this was really hard, and I ended up kind of copping out a little bit. I picked the 3 narrators in My Calamity Jane by the Lady Janies. We have Calamity Jane, Annie Oakley, and Frank Butler. This book is fantastic. It's a Wild West adventure with gurus, which are werewolves, and we have some characters who are gurus, and some who are humans, and some who are gunfighters, and some who are showmen, and some who are secret agents and Pinkertons, and all these different things. And the Lady Janies, if you've read any books by them, they have this fantastic sense of humor as narrators and as the characters, and so anyway, I am fascinated with the Western United States history because I live in Wyoming, and you know, that to begin with, but I also loved musicals like Annie Get Your Gun and those kind of things. So these characters just really spoke to me, and even though I'm on to reading other things right now, they're still kind of popping into my head. Number 10 is a book that made you cry, and I chose The Other Side of Lost by Jessie Kirby. I don't have a copy here to hold up and show you because my copy is in my classroom. As soon as I finished reading this book, I immediately started pitching it to my students and trying to get them to read it, and it's at school. So this is about a girl whose best friend has passed away. She's also her cousin, and their friendship actually isn't so tight anymore. They used to have this plan that they were going to go on this hike the entire John Muir Trail together, and our main characters kind of stepped away from that. She's more into being a social media influencer and blah blah blah, and she accidentally posts something that she didn't mean to and kind of like embarrasses herself globally and decides, I'm gonna go take that trip. She got a package in the mail that has all of her cousin's hiking gear and stuff in it prepared for the trip, and the questing permit to leave on the trip in just a day or two. So she's like, heck, I'm going. And she decides to go on this hike by herself. And along the way, she makes some friends and joins some people, but she's trying to hide her social media identity from them because she doesn't want them to think of her as this selfish, superficial girl that she was on social media. And she wants them to think of her as this new person that she's learning to be. This book made me want to spend time in the wilderness. It made me want to go on a crazy long hike, even though I would probably die because I have health issues, plus I tend to injure myself while just standing still, let alone hiking in the mountains. Anyway, at the very least, I want to go camping being inspired by this book. And I will. Anyway, highly recommend it. Jessie Kirby, The Other Side of Lost. Okay, number 11 is a book that made you happy. And for this one, I'm going outside of my normal genre and picking Riding the Elephant by Craig Ferguson. I've talked about this book before. I just hit myself with it. Thanks, Craig. I've talked about this book before on this channel. Craig is my favorite comedian. He's raunchy but adorable at the same time, and he has that lovely Scottish accent, and he's a fantastic writer. So good. If you get a chance to read his book, American on Purpose, it's a biography or autobiography about his growing up and his experience with drug and alcohol addiction, and coming out of that and building the life that he has. And there's a beautiful passage about his parents, and anyway, just very good read. And this one is excellent as well. This is more of a collection of shorter memoir-ish pieces, and it just made me happy to read from him again and to go, oh, I remember on his late night show when he used to say that, or I remember blah blah blah. So this one just made me happy. Number 12 is the most beautiful book that you bought or received this year, and I have to come back to one that I've already spoken about in this video, City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty. This is the British cover, and I ordered it from a book depository specifically so that I could get this cover in paperback, and it's just so pretty, and like the prettiness continues, and I just really love this. And I don't know why. I don't know if it's the colors. It's very Ravenclaw colors. I'm not sure if it's the Middle Eastern theme, if it's like, I don't know what, but it's just pretty. And the last question, number 13, is what books do you need to read by the end of the year? If I were to give you every book that I would like to read by the end of the year, that would take forever, and you guys would be going, shut up. So I picked 3, and I'm not really going to talk too much about each one. I'm just going to quickly show you and tell you a little bit of what I know. So the first one is All the Boys Aren't Blue by George M. Johnson, and this is a memoir or a collection of pieces, if I remember correctly, by George Johnson, and it's about growing up Black and queer in America. And considering all the social movements and things that are going on right now, this book has been everywhere, and it seems like it's fantastic, and I would probably want to read it anyway, even if it weren't the topic of the day. The next one is Between Burning Worlds, and this is by Jessica Brody and Joanne Rendell. This is the sequel to Sky Without Stars, and this is Les Miserables in space. Enough said, right? It's bloody fantastic. And then the last one is Dangerous Alliance by Janique, is that right? Cohen. And this is an ostentatious romance. Anything inspired by Jane Austen, of course, is going to be on my need-to-read list. Alright, so that brings us to the end of this tag. I will put the questions in the space below, as well as the books that I selected for my answers. And I hope you guys all have a wonderful and bookish day. Happy reading. Adios.